Welcome to Basic Contours or Highlights and Shadows. I'm going to use the Charlene product Mannequin Heads, no relationship to me, Kryolan Super Color palette, a series of brushes that come with our kit, and I'm also using a foundation brush and a blush brush, the Crypta set, which is the sanitizer, a powder brush, the blush from Kryolan, and some Bare Minerals primer. If you don't have primer, feel free to use a thin layer of lotion. I'm going to squeeze some primer in my hand and I'm going to put it all over this mannequin face. If you're using your own face, do the same thing. Primer is really a barrier between the makeup and your skin. Makes the makeup go on smoother, gives us a nice surface to work on. You want to make sure it gets all over the face. Pull out your schematic, also known as the map of how your makeup will be laid out, and refer to that as you put your makeup in, and write down the names of your makeup as you determine them. And then we're going to move on to matching our foundation color. Remember color theory when we talked about how to find the perfect foundation color? Well, it doesn't always match right out of the bottle, or in this case the palette. So what I'm doing is taking what I think is the closest colors and matching it on the neck of this form. If you're doing this on your actual face, you want to match along your jawline. I am just matching until I find the right mix for this particular mannequin head. It's actually two colors. It's this darker one up here and the lower one on the bottom. So I'm having a hard time because this makeup has been sitting here in a cool drawer. It's warming up as I go. So you find with your new makeup that it's not moving around as quickly as you want. Take your time and really move it around with your brush. And I'm going to switch to my foundation brush to mix my color in bigger amounts. I pulled out the two colors I'm using and I put them out. Instead of mixing up a big pool, I'm actually dabbing it in different spots around the face. I find this can be really useful when laying in that first layer of foundation because you need a lot of color. So I'm just alternating between the two colors and then I'm going to blend it all with my foundation brush. If you don't have a foundation brush, feel free to use a wedge. Wedges are really great. I just don't happen to have a wedge I like on hand, and I do have my foundation brush. I'm moving it all around the face, making sure to get around the nostril, over the lip, under the chin. And next we're going to move on to the highlight. For the highlight, we're going to look at what we did for our base tone and either start with the lighter of our two tones or the next one down. Looking at that color along the jawline again, I'm using the jawline to test my colors again. I am mixing the foundation color slightly lighter than what we used and then a little bit of the second to lightest in the kit. I'm going to clean up the area that I tested on because I don't want any of that color there. I'm going to quickly mark a hairline on my mannequin form. If you're doing this on your face, you have your own hairline. Hairlines are a great landmark to refer to the rest of your makeup with. And next I'm going to charge up my brush. So I've made a pool of color on the lid of the Kryolan palette that happens to be white because white is a great color to mix for palette. And I'm going to start laying in my highlight color. We're going to start from the top of the face and work down. It's going to start with the forehead, do a nice curve shape of that forehead. Then we're going to go to the nose, so we go down the middle of the nasal bone and then on either nostril. And you want to make sure it's nice and straight. I can come and fix that in a little bit. Next, I'm going to do the highlights over my temple and my brow. Next, we're going to do the highlight on top of the cheekbone. You really want to feel where that zygomatic arch is and get right on top of the bone. I tend to do a little more highlight towards the front than the back. The next, you're going to lay in your highlight over your chin, and you really want to focus around the roundness of the chin. And next we're going to do the jawline. You want to be right on top of your mandible bone, right on top of your jawbone, and eventually we'll start blending up. Now we're gonna check our work. I'm gonna make sure I did my forehead, my temple, the brow highlight, the nasal bone, the cheek, the chin, and the jawline. I'm gonna come back and actually give myself a little more highlight on my cheekbones by hashing through that. It'll give me a little more product to move around later. We're gonna repeat by finding our low light. We're gonna go and remember what we did for our base color, and then go and start with either the darker or the base color and add a little bit of darkness, or the next one down. And again, that highlight wants to be 2 or 3 shades lighter, a tint of your foundation, and the shadow wants to be 2 or 3 tones darker than your foundations. I'm testing on the neck of this mannequin. If this was on you, you want to test on your jawline. And once you're done, you're gonna clean it up. Baby wipes are great for this. So I've determined what my highlight color is. I am mixing it up. I am making sure my brush, when I charge it, meaning get it full of that product, is nice and flat. You want those bristles to be flat so you can lay it in really cleanly and easily. I want to do a little bit of shadow under my forehead, and it wants to be really minimum. And then shadow lines above my temple. To find that line, you can go from the corner of your mouth using your brush, the peak of the eyebrow, and I think of that as a reverse triangle. Next, I'm going to go along the side of my nasal bone, and it's right along the side, and you pull it right up into your eye socket ever so slightly. Next is the cheekbone, so the low light on your cheekbone. Again, I tend to, for the highlights, have a little more in the front, and for the low lights, a little more low light towards the back. And I'm checking to see what I like. The low light for my chin, I often omit this, but since I'm doing a tutorial, I'm going to leave that low light there and just do a little bit on either side. I'm going to do low light underneath the mandible or the jawline, and I'm drawing underneath that bone line and pulling that color straight down. Again, I go back and check to make sure I did everything I wanted to, make sure I have enough product where I want. I'm adding a little cheek, adding a little jaw, and of course, as you go, you want to make sure you're always cleaning your brushes. I use one brush for my foundation, one brush for my highlight, and one brush for my low light. I'm going to use this wedge. It's a little bit tough. I like them a little more soft, but I'll do my best. So we're going to blend our highlights. Highlights tend to blend up and inward. Low lights tend to blend down and outward. We're gonna start at the forehead, and I'm gonna grab that highlight and blend up. So I'm grabbing it with my wedge, that bit of color, and I'm twisting and blending it up into that hairline. Next, I'm gonna go to the highlight above the temple, and I'm grabbing the color and moving towards the forehead. Grabbing it and moving in towards the forehead. Next is the cheek, grabbing it and going up and then in towards the nasal bone. If you need highlight because you overblend or you didn't have enough product on there to start with, charge up that sponge and go back in there. You can see me working my way through that cheekbone. After I do my cheek, I'm now going to straighten the nose. Then I'm not going to blend down, just doing the top and the bottom of the nasal bone, hitting that nostril. I'll do the chin, followed by the jawline, and I'm grabbing that product, twisting up and towards the cheek. I'll grab a brush and clean up any of the areas I need to clean up with. You can see where my low light came in on that jawline. So I'm grabbing my brush, grabbing the highlight brush, evening out some of the areas that my wedge wasn't able to do. Especially this chin. I probably have a little too much highlight on here, but I'll wait till the very end, get rid of. And then I'm going to touch up that highlight on the brow ever so slightly, really just making it a little less hot. Next, we're going to do the same thing, but with our low lights. So I'm going to find a clean area on my sponge. I'm going to work from the top and go all the way down. So remember, low light tend to go down and out. So along that forehead low light, I'm going to go right along the bulbous area ever so slightly. For the temple, I'm going to grab that color. I made a nice shape with that wedge. Grab that color and blend down and away from the forehead back towards the hairline. Thing with the cheek. That low light is right under the cheekbone, and I'm going to grab the color and go down, back towards the highlight, down and back towards the hairline. For the jawline, I'm grabbing the color under the jawline, under that mandible bone, and really grabbing it and blending it where you already have a natural shadow. Contours are just highlights and shadows of what is naturally there. So again, I'm gonna go into the nasal bone along the edge. I'm pulling it down towards the cheek line, but not onto the cheek, and then up into the eye socket. I'm using a brush for this because brushes are great to get into smaller areas, especially around the nose and the eye, around the chin, and you can see me cleaning up with that brush because it's moving the product around a little more easily on this mannequin head, and I'm going to repeat on the other side. Grabbing the temple, blending down and towards the hairline. Grabbing that cheek low light, grabbing it, twisting it down and then back. You can see how there's more low light towards the back of the face because it tends to be naturally more defined in the back, that shadow. And that nasal bone, I'm just going up and down, switching to my brush, grabbing that shadow line and pulling it straight down onto the nose and then up into the eye socket. And I'm gonna go back over this whole thing and clean it up with my brush. Clean up any edges I need to, add any additional product, be it low light or highlight, and notice that I'm working back and forth with my two brushes. I'm working here with my low light brush, and I'll switch to my highlight brush when I'm cleaning up the highlight. Got my chin low light on this side, so I'm going to grab that and blend it out really quick. And I'm going to use the wedge to blend in those larger areas. And then you always want to make sure you're going to check this jawline because often the first place that we forget or miss, especially when you do makeup on yourself, is under the mandible right there by the corner of the ear. So if you're doing it on yourself, make sure you're looking in the mirror so you can really see that. Or if somebody is by you, have them check because you can't always see it because it's in shadow. Now I'm going to switch to my bigger brush, which I already have a little base color on it, so I'm using this to blend out the edges of my shadow back to my base colors. So under the chin first, under the forehead, the temple, and I'm just blending straight down to make it a little more even. And then I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to grab my highlight brush and make sure I go and clean up all those highlight edges in the same way. Checking my work, seeing if I like things. The highlight on the chin still feels a little hot, so I'm going to clean it up. I'm starting from the top, looking through everything. Turn the head from side to side, very easy to do with a mannequin to make sure I get everything blended and I haven't missed anything. In a real human head, make sure you're moving your face around in the mirror so you see everything. Next, very important, I'm going to powder. I'm going to charge up my brush with the translucent setting powder. I'm going to really get a lot of product in there. I'm going to tap it on the table, knock it in to the bristles, and then knock off all that extra powder. I'm going to do it as often as I need, knock it in, knock off that extra, and then really powder that face. We want to powder the face because it's really going to set our makeup. It's going to keep it from melting, it's going to keep it from being too shiny, and it's also going to blend a little bit. Next, we're going to do a very similar step with the blush. I'm not the biggest fan of this Kryolan blush that comes with our kit. It's a little too bubblegum. It doesn't give me quite enough colors. Feel free to swap it out with a blush you like. But I'm going to charge up my brush, get a lot of product in, knock it out over my hand. And when I put my blush on, I do it like a C shape. I start by the ear and I move forward because it's going to send the blush forward. I'm going to go over that cheek, a little more on the highlight, but going slightly down onto that low light, a little down the nose, a little across the forehead, and a little bit on the chin. If you want to do it on the jawline, you can. Blush is really going to bring life back into the face. Don't forget that step. And that's it. Next video, we're going to look at how to take this all off the face. Have fun, do your best.